Pickaxe.
And welcome back to the Review of Death, a Doctor Who podcast and your fortnightly home for Doctor Who news and reviews. I am Matthew Toffolo. I am joined, as always, by Billy Garratt-John. How are you doing, bud?
Howdy, partner. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's early morning in New Zealand. The cold has reached us, finally. It is bitter. But I was going to say, nothing would thaw my cold heart and extremities more than talking about Doctor Who, but actually might make that worse considering the position we're in. So today's episode is, it's going to be a sort of wrap up of series 15 where we try and encapsulate all the best and the worst of it and figure out if it worked or not. Was it a mess or was it a success? I think we kind of know the answer to that before we start. But I actually listened to the one that we did for last season yesterday.
Yeah.
And all of the same problems, are here again. So, we'll get around to that in a minute. But
save you all the trouble. We're just going to play that one on a loop and go home.
We might as well and just replace us saying Series 14 with Series 15. You got some news for us, though, is that right? And we've got a little bit of
Got some
Unleashed chat.
Got some news. Well, I say news. It's lack thereof. So we are now over a week since Ncuti Gatwa said goodbye to Doctor Who and Billie Piper stood in his shoes or had her face superimposed over his muscular frame. But we haven't really heard anything else since. I'm quite surprised that we've had no press releases or anything. It's all just ended up as tumbleweed. It's really weird.
I'm not surprised in the slightest, I've got to be honest.
Really? You just think...
I think that everything was so rushed together and so last minute. I don't think they've had an opportunity to sort of survey the landscape and even think about making plans. I know that Russell said that he's written the next season, but obviously that sort of got thrown into disarray, I guess, firstly when Disney were reneging on...
That's like me saying I've written all those Doctor Who action figure adventures. Doesn't mean they're going to get made.
Well, that's it. And also... Yeah, just due to the last minute nature of everything, and you know, I'm sure that the reaction from the audience doesn't really play into it at all, because otherwise he wouldn't have written that series back to back. But I don't think they're even close to making decisions on the future of Doctor Who. This is all stuff we'll get to towards the end, because we're going to try and predict what happens next.
Yeah,
but unless they have a streaming partner waiting in the wings, I don't really know if they can start making plans even penciling dates or, reaching out to writers or anything like that. I just don't think any of that's going to happen for a long time.
Well, funny you should say that, because there has been a bit of news. So, Hollywood scooper Daniel Richtman, who has proven himself to be a reliable source for Doctor Who intel, apparently. He certainly has been a reliable source for like comic book films and that kind of stuff. I sort of follow his scoops, and they always seem to be pretty good. He has said Doctor Who is only dead at Disney, but there are active talks to revive it elsewhere, and things are looking promising. Okay. There we go. That take that as you will. I think we kind of assumed that it was dead at Disney when they didn't renew it for season 3 straight away, and they left poor Ncuti Gatwa hanging. So I mean, it is a bit of a clusterfuck to say the least, but I guess just watch this space. I mean, there's rumours abound in The Sun and The Mirror that there's going to be a Christmas special with David Tennant and Billie Piper, and that's going to be like the last
at the end of this year?
at the end of this year. And that's going to be like the
Fucking hell.
last hurrah to celebrate 20 years of Doctor Who being back. And it'll be like a goodbye to that sort of period of the show for good, maybe.
I thought the last time they did that was the goodbye to that period of the show.
I know. Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see. And apparently they said it will address the bi-generation. I guess David Tennant and Billy Piper will merge together. I
was talking about this last night. I would have much preferred it, actually, if the whole point is for us to get back to David, because isn't that what the report said, is it's a back door for David to come back in some capacity?
Yeah.
I would have far preferred that episode if it had ended with them bi-generating together.
Yeah.
And sort of tying that knot, and then we just have David for another special, and then we give it to another person. And I know that's sort of the same problem as Billy coming back, in that it can't let go of the past. But at least then you're not going into the next special wondering if the lead actor is playing the Doctor or not. Because that still, to me, is a really baffling decision, that the success or otherwise of the programme, particularly among fans, is sort of teetering in the balance to a degree.
Yeah.
And then you go and cast somebody who may or may not be playing the lead role in the show that everybody wants to watch because the lead role is the Doctor.
Yeah.
I find that a very interesting, very risky move. I mean, fucking God knows what's going to happen. I mean, there's no point trying to predict it, at least not in the first half of this podcast. We'll get around to it in the end. Yeah. But it's a very, very strange situation. Almost as strange as Doctor Who Unleashed 20 Years of Doctor Who in Wales.
Yes.
Which was a subtitle that took me by surprise when it popped up. I don't remember it being publicised as that.
No.
So obviously the Welsh Tourist Board had a hand in putting this together, it seems like.
Well, I guess they were like, right, Doctor Who, the Doctor Who office is basically on fire. It's that meme, isn't it, of Community?
Yeah.
Where Glover comes in with the bloody pizzas and everything's on fire. But it's Stephen Powell and everything's on fire. And someone's shouted out, put a positive spin on this. And he sat there racking his brain and he's like, it's been great for the Welsh economy.
There we go, and it has been, clearly. And as half Welshman, I did really appreciate that, and I love Wales, and it's nice to see them talking about it. I thought it was interesting how they spent the whole time talking up Doctor Who's effect on Welsh film and TV, and then at the end said, "Could we say that all of this is here because of Doctor Who?" No. But it's like, I think it probably is, though, isn't it? Like, I think you're being too modest now. It was a catalyst. No, it was the thing. Like,
Yeah, no one went there otherwise.
It was a very scrappy show, I have to say. And it reeks of fix it in the edit. And it reeks of, we've got a cut, but we can't use a lot of the material for one reason or another. To the point where, and I think everybody posted this online as look what they've given us as a special treat. It's an alternative take of Shooty's line reading.
Oh, yeah.
His last line. But I was chatting to my mate Sam last night about it, and he went, because he's an editor, and he basically went, they wouldn't have had it picture locked if they were doing it that close to the wire, the whole regeneration thing.
Yeah.
So somebody probably just gave them a take of that scene just to include it, and by accident we happen to have seen an alternative take of that scene, which is one part of this whole thing feeling very last minute, very rushed together, very scrappy. I wanted to see the take where after he says it he goes, right, I'm off to Hollywood, bollocks to the lot of you. The last shot is him getting his coat and his P45. The Zoom interviews were baffling. Yeah. Because that is what made me think, did I just hear Johnny screaming at Mario Kart in the background?
Yes, you did, yeah.
It's just at the right frequency that it travelled.
I think he shouted prick.
Yeah, that's what
quick,
I thought I heard.
He said, oh, sorry.
What it seemed like to me, not to labour the point and badmouth the show, because there were bits of it that were quite nice, but it we're so spoilt with the collection sets that anything other than that in terms of revelations and archive and material is going to seem pretty poor by comparison.
Yeah.
I felt like they had got an edit done. Obviously, they had that bit at the end with Stefan saying, "We didn't know that Billy was going to be in the new Doctor Who," and you could even see where he's the way it's sort of shot.
Mm.
I think he sat in the edit suite, and the way that he refers to the Unleashed team and he looks off camera, I think he's pointing at the monitor where they're cutting it together and he's doing his voiceover, and they're like, "Shit, we've got to cut this thing together.
Yeah,
we've got to knit it together with this thing." And I think that the Zoom interviews and the fact that more contributors kept getting added to it, seemingly after production would have theoretically wrapped, I think means that there was more in there that they just cut, or they were supposed to get Capaldi and couldn't get him. They were supposed to get Eccleston or Smith and couldn't get them, and they just kept having to flesh it out with more companions.
Well, I mean, Smith, I think is he making a film at the moment? So he's probably too busy to chat Doctor Who.
But Billy Piper was clearly in Karen Gillan, excuse me, was clearly in a dressing room somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
And Mandip Gill, by the tone of her voice, seemed to be recording it in a room in a house where someone was sleeping next door. Nan's asleep in the other room. It was really, really rough.
Capaldi will never come back for any of this stuff. Capaldi and Eccleston, the hard done by doctors.
It's quite disappointing, isn't it?
It is disappointing.
And they spent all that time with Pearl Mackie giving an anecdote about one of the worst Doctor Who episodes ever made.
Yes. What do you remember? What do you remember from being in Doctor Who? It was cold and we were in a field one time. The funniest thing was, it's in the script, it said there were some caves. So I thought they were going to build some caves, but they didn't. We went to some caves. It was mental. I was like, what is this? What is this anecdote? It's hardly they all had eye patches.
Interesting she doesn't mention where in Wales those caves were, because of course we know it's Redcliffe Caves in Bristol.
Yes, yeah.
So don't you dare fucking try and claim it, you sheep shaggers. So
you can say that because he is one.
I can say that. I've got the card.
Yeah, that's why he moved to New Zealand.
Yeah, and I could do that. See, that might actually implement me in wanting to use that term more often than I should, but that's not the case at all. It was a really odd program, and I think it was a big missed opportunity on many fronts. And it was nice to see Ray Holman or Iris Lynn. It was nice to see them. Seeing Lynn, though, when it cut from archive of him directing Chris on the studio floor, and then seeing him, I was like, this is like watching a DVD extra 20 years ago and seeing how much, Barry Letts aged.
Yeah. It's funny, wasn't it?
But I wanted more of it, because I was interested in them talking about nobody had done a show like this before. I found it interesting. Stephen saying nobody knows how long you can have a man in a rubber suit, standing, sweating in the corner. It's like I'm pretty sure there were some industry guidelines about things like that. Like when they start fainting, maybe call an ambulance or something.
I feel like some of that was a little bit exaggerated. I'm like, surely there was like children's television where they did mad stuff with like people in costumes and stuff. It wasn't
Red
like
Dwarf had prosthetics.
Oh yeah, exactly. And obviously, across the pond in America, there are loads of stuff like Stargate and Buffy and all the other bloody things. So it wasn't like, maybe groundbreaking for over here, but
groundbreaking for Wales.
Groundbreaking for Wales, certainly. It was a funny old beast, but it was a sort of a nice whistle stop tour down memory lane. weird, wasn't it?
I love my favourite bit is Billie Piper being able to barely disguise her contempt for Daleks. I thought it was great.
She was just like,
she's clearly just
wanted
a shit.
Yeah.
Which is
she's
great.
Like John Pertwee, isn't she?
Yeah, she
hates
is.
the bloody things.
And her and David were great.
Yeah, they were good. They're always good together, aren't they, those two? Almost like there might be a Christmas special with them. No, joking.
You never know.
Yeah, they're good. And she was, her little slip up when she was like, oh, so coming back. I mean, if I came back.
It was desperate that they put that in at the end. Like, here's a couple of the hints that she dropped that she was going to be coming back. And it's one slight misspeak in her thing. And it's like, if she hadn't come back, that would have literally just been a slip of the tongue.
Yes, yeah. That's very true.
I don't think we can call that a hint, Stefan, but all right.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, let's talk about Series 15.
Series 15.
Or any more news?
Only that the finale got 3.44 million viewers for the consolidated ratings. And it was the second most, I think it was the most watched programme on the BBC. And the second most watched programme of the day behind Britain's Got Talent. So.
Are you able to tell me what the jump was between Wishworld and the Reality War?
Oh, no, I don't have those numbers, I'm afraid.
That's all right.
I think it was like 1 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So not bad.
So not bad. Not bad at all. Yeah, I guess this is it, isn't it? In today's climate of television, people aren't watching stuff in the same way. It is true. I know people always sort of poo-poo it, but I think it is fairly true from what we're seeing.
I can't tell you the number of shows that I just haven't started and have been promising myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Breaking Bad finally. Never got round to it. I'm going to watch Game of Thrones finally. Never got round to it. And Doctor Who doesn't command the same attention, or respect. So, people certainly are not going to be rushing out to catch up on it. Particularly when a series ends the way that it has the last 2 years, where everybody's going away with a bad taste in their mouths.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't fucking bother investing time into watching this thing because it's just going to disappoint you again.
Yeah. I got to admit, though, the amount of people at work who I didn't think watched Doctor Who, who came up to me and were like, so what did you think about that then? I was shocked because there were people who I was like, well, I knew you used to watch Doctor Who back in the day when Matt Smith and Karen Gillan were in it, but I thought you dropped off long ago. And then, some people who I just didn't think watched it at all. And they were like, oh yeah, that was a bit shit. They were very much of the opinion of like, well, I'll watch it to see where it's going, but it does feel a bit desperate. That was basically the sentiments from everyone was like, wow, they're clearly desperately trying to get people to watch this program who used to watch it, which is sad, really. If the general public are thinking it, it's different when the fans think it, because obviously we're a miserable bunch of bastards.
I don't know how you can look at that decision though and not think it comes across as desperate.
Yeah.
And the thing that really confuses me, we'll get to this before we get onto the main meat of the episode, is, I don't know if I mentioned it on the last episode, the photo that Russell shared on Instagram of Billy's canvas chair with her name printed on the back. Now, to all intents and purposes, she shot that in London, right? That close-up on green screen. Is that what's understood to be the case?
Apparently so, yeah. She certainly, well, I think you can tell just from the final product, she was not there.
I mean, I can get if she wasn't there on the same day as Shooty.
Yeah.
But weird that Russell shared that photo if she's not done anything on set yet, and that was all just green screen stuff.
Yeah.
What else has been shot? Because that photo was the chair on the TARDIS set.
I wonder if it's just spin, just to make it seem like, plans are afoot, don't worry.
That is majorly depressing.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, BBC Studios weren't exactly rushing out to share any promotional images of the new Doctor, quote unquote, even if she doesn't end up being the Doctor, to a general audience until that reveal is made that she's the heart of the TARDIS or she's Bad Wolf or whatever. she is the new Doctor Who. She's just replaced the old Doctor Who. So to not have that promo image come out immediately, maybe that's Russell sort of going, right, I'll take this into my own hands and I'll put something out that is at least representative of Onwards, new Doctor. But
quick,
shit,
get the boys in the warehouse and see if they can dig out Billy Piper's old chair from Series 2.
Oh shit, we sold it in that charity auction. Bollocks to you, I'll buy one myself. Okay, well we'll talk about the future of Doctor Who in a little bit, and we'll predict where we think it's going. But for the time being, we're gonna do what went right and what went wrong.
Yeah.
And like I said, I dug out my notes from last year, and I think I'm basically just gonna replace the stuff that's in there.
Okay.
So what went right? Vera Seth.
Yeah, that's my top one. Vera Seth. Yeah.
And considering the situation she was coming into, her clearly being a plan B.
Yeah.
And
I gotta say, it's so funny how the amount of people when, I think ourselves and, a few other like podcasters and things were like, oh dear, getting the job a fortnight before, that's dodgy, or like this all seems very weird, and people are like, no, it's all ridiculous, what are you talking about? And it's like, it's literally there, it's there in black and white, it's on the screen.
It's on the screen how much of a sticky situation it was. I think she was inspired, and I think that she it's nothing to do with her performance, but it's a shame that she went from I don't need no man, take me home, to where's my baby at the end. But I can't blame her for that, and I can to a degree let that go because of the circumstances they were working in, that she was basically reading somebody else's material for the vast majority of that season. So
is this the first time the Doctor's knocked someone up and then left them?
It might be. Doesn't the Eighth Doctor sleep with
Benny Summerfield?
Is it Benny? Is it?
Yeah, I think so. In one of the novels.
Doesn't Sam have like a dream where she's sleeping with the Eighth Doctor? Probably in one of the books.
Anything goes in those things.
Anything goes. So yeah, Vera Seth. The
Doctor should have been having
fantastic.
a chumley for all we know.
Chumley in the console room. Come over here, Sam, and give us a chumley. I've got a bucket to catch my slop. Yeah, so that's gone way off track. I apologise. But yeah, Vera Seth, inspire casting. I'm also going to, before we move on to your thing that went right, a thing, singular. I'm also going to give a shout out for that middle block of the season, which was fantastic. Yeah. Not a duff one in there. And I know that obviously since the Interstellar Song Contest went out, there's been a lot of barbs thrown at it. In some regards, I think that's absolutely justified. I can only take it for the sake of my own sanity and my own personal time as a piece of TV. And I think that there are things wrong with it even in that regard. But again, like last year, a great trunk of a season. But it's just, the final furlong where it stumbled again.
Yes. Yeah, this is it. I said, Vera Seth, like you said, she was brilliant. It's just such a sad waste at the end. Just such a shame. And now, I wonder if they wrote that line in with Ncuti saying, I hope I see you again, but not with this face. It was sound like Russell being like, I hope we can get you to come back, but with a different actor.
We'll make it up to you.
Make it up to you, yeah. Hell, I'd have sooner she'd have turned into Doctor Who the fuck cares at this point?
Yeah, that was my little wild prediction for the end of the season, was either she was going to be Doctor Who or she was going to be Susan.
Yeah, little did we expect her to end up with a baby.
I mean, that would have been a fantastic, baby thing aside, because you would have had to have chucked the baby for the last 5 minutes so that the Doctor could regenerate into her. But I think we all would have been a lot more hopeful and positive about the series if it had ended with Vera Seth as the new Doctor Who.
Yeah. Maybe with baby in tow. The first single mum Doctor.
Why not? Why not?
Every time she comes out the TARDIS with her pram.
Yeah. Excuse me, Davros. Before I follow this plan, I'm going to have to do a spot of milking.
Actually, that'd be very handy in a Dalek situation. Not the milking, but if you've got a baby and you're like, right, a Dalek's in the room, just whip the nappy off, chuck that over the eye stalk.
Perfect.
Shit on the eye. That's it.
That scene in Doctor Who and the Daleks now, that sludginess has got a distinct pong now associated with it forever. All right, go on then. What else have you got?
Was that meconium?
It probably was.
So Vera Seth, brilliant. Such a shame that it ended the way it did. But yeah, kind of like you were saying, new writers. That was my big takeaway. Obviously, we had no new writers last year. It was just Russell and Stephen. But I think...
Well, we had Kate Herron and from Rogue.
I didn't like that episode, so that went by the wayside. Yes, but we had other new writers for this series. Whose episodes I did enjoy. But I think, just this general sense of it feeling a bit more fresh. Even when the stories didn't necessarily work as well as they could have done. Like, say, I know some people really loved the story in the Engine, but I know for us it didn't. I don't know, for me it was good, but it didn't quite hit as well as I thought it was going to. But I think it was seeing the promise of what it could be, and that clearly actually there's some really good ideas here that, maybe it could have been fleshed out in a different way. Had it not been the cheap episode that was clearly shoot this in one room for the most part. But I think having new writers, fresh blood was just really what the series needs. It's just there on paper. Because even a story like The Well, which although it has Russell's name attached to it, I think his name is merely attached to it because of the fact that it's got connections to Midnight. I think.
Well, you'd imagine that because he has a tendency to rewrite a lot of the scripts that come in from other writers. I don't know if that tendency still exists now, but you would imagine that a significant amount of rewriting or tweaking or editing was done by him to the point where I think, isn't it like not a legal thing, but it is like a creative writing edict that if you rewrite a significant portion of a script, it has to be credited and blank.
I think it might be, yeah.
Which is why Chris Chibnall had to put his name on Mallory Blackman's script.
Yes, yeah. So I think having new writers, it's the thing we've been saying for weeks, the show needs fresh blood, and it had it. And I think that's where the series really shone, was having those new writers coming in, doing different things. Like you said about Interstellar Song Contest, love it or hate it, it does have its issues. But like you said, to view it as solely as a piece of television that is there to be, just watched and switched off and, don't think too hard about it. I enjoyed it. People at work enjoyed that episode a lot, actually. I had a lot of fun with that episode.
Any other positives?
The serialized format. Now, it was only loosely serialized, but I did enjoy the fact that every episode sort of ended with a cliffhanger, and there did feel like, okay, there's a proper story going between episodes with the Doctor trying to get Belle home, the Vindicator stuff. Shame that just turned out to be the hands of a clock face and a Ghostbusters gun. But it was fun to begin with.
It was fun to begin with. It did make me think of that quote from Russell talking about the sonic screwdriver looking like a gun.
Yeah.
And then he gives the Doctor a fucking spaced AK-47 to kill Omega with at the end of the season. So
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of question marks over decisions and quotes. More so the quotes and like, why are you saying this stuff? Anyway,
when in doubt, say nout.
But you've got to promote a TV show as well and get it in the press. So,
yeah. Well, that doesn't usually be open anyway.
No.
Oh dear. But that was it. Yeah, that was it for what worked. Shooty Gatwa. I think last year I was sort of down on Shooty. I wasn't so keen on him. This time round, I really started to enjoy his performance. I would have happily have watched another series with him as the Doctor. Yeah. He really did grow on me. I think he really sort of found his footing. And I think a lot of that is down to the pairing with Varada and, again, the new writers. I think they managed to... I don't know, he just felt a bit more grounded. I think last year it was very much broad strokes that, I'm just this big character, whereas this time round it felt like there were more emotional moments. Not that he didn't have those last year. He did, and I think he shone in those moments. But I think for this year, it was more level, which I enjoyed. But yeah, that was it really for the positives, other than the general stuff like nice directing here and there and nice sets. Nice sets, yeah. And
the CG, the jump in the quality of the CG for Doctor Who, even from I don't know, because I remember the Ghost Monument being quite a kind of whoa, look how good Doctor Who looks kind of moment. But even that compared to, the stuff that's happening in the Ghost Monument is obviously different, but it's budget restrictions that still mean you don't have a sequence in the Jodie Whittaker era where they're in a stadium and the gravity shield pops and everybody goes flying out into outer space. Yeah, and I think that's deserves to be mentioned.
In an early draft, my little bit of insider knowledge here. In an early draft, all those people were meant to die.
I get the feeling that was the case.
Yeah. Which makes, I think...
then it justifies the Doctor's actions.
Yeah, because this guy's just come and killed however many thousands of people in an instant. Yeah.
That probably would have helped. I don't know if it would have helped the optics because of what, what Kid has gone through and the Doctor's still subjugating him to, those kind of actions that he takes on him. But it probably would have helped a little bit.
Yeah, I think it would have made the Doctor's emotional journey make more sense, I think. His reaction, because he sort of goes from 0 to 60 in terms of fucked offness very quickly.
Even when he's just talking down the monitor before he even starts electrocuting him.
Yeah.
With his hard light. I love that. Somebody messaged me, I need to find the message, and said that hard light has already been canonised in Doctor Who before that episode.
What, in a novel?
No, apparently in the TV show.
Oh, right, okay. I'll
find that. And in a novel. I'll find that, and you give us your first caca point.
My first caca of the day, the 45-minute slot. It is not working. Why are we still constraining ourselves to 45 minutes when most other TV shows, particularly in the streaming age, don't give a shit about that stuff? Why is it not an hour at this point? It's insane. Especially when there's instances where they're literally cutting stuff out of the episodes and we know things have been shot. The whole stuff with Belinda's parents, Belinda's mum and dad. We know that there was stuff shot for the first episode with her mum and dad. Where was that? All right, it might not have been a necessarily hugely important thing, but it would have just given us a little bit more of a character. It's better for us to see her family and how she interacts with her family in the first episode than they just pop up into some bloody weird reality and you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is her mum then. Especially when we have no reference to how she is in real life. It just feels weird. So yeah, the 45-minute slot, get that in the bin because it's just a hindrance at this point. It was, I think with Chibnall, weren't they 50 minutes for the most part? Doctor Who episodes back then? Yeah, I think
so.
So yeah, why did they cut them down? Madness.
Well, I get it from the perspective that obviously Disney Plus wouldn't care what length it comes in at, but obviously the BBC One premiere is still probably a touchy negotiating point. But as far as the production are concerned, Disney's a co-partner, and they are still making it for the BBC because it's still earning money for the BBC directly rather than Disney. Yeah. So I'd imagine that they prioritize making sure that it's at broadcast length. I wouldn't have been against the idea of putting extended versions on iPlayer and then having a broadcast version, and then the Disney ones being the extended editions.
That would have put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's only Doctor Who fans that are going to try and seek that out, you know?
Doctor Who fans watching it.
And if somebody stumbles upon it because they're streaming it on iPlayer and they happen to get the extended version with more material, that's only going to be good, isn't it, really? Because it's going to help flesh out the moments or help with the pacing or whatever. Yeah,
they get the Susan Foreman cut of Reality War.
Well, I think when it comes to kind of structural stuff, it's probably better that didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I think the format... I think the format is a big problem. Mummy on the Orient Express was when Hard Light was first mentioned in Doctor Who, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So there we go. I stand corrected. Matt's box of I love that episode.
I stand corrected.
We should do that because I don't really like Mummy.
You don't like Mummy?
I don't like Mummy.
I like that story. Do you know what? I was thinking the other day, after that Doctor Who Unleashed, I was like, do you know what? I quite like Series 8. I know people are down on it, but I actually quite like it. I've watched it a few times, and you know what? I take that over a lot of stuff these days.
Yeah, same. So I'm
Danny
going
Pink
to...
and all. I like Danny Pink.
Danny Pink, yeah, shit. Forgotten all about that. And the Doctor hating soldiers.
That was weird. That's mental.
And Cyberbrig. Oh no, it's shit. Fuck that series. Right.
Yeah.
My first one is literally I'm going to read this from what I wrote last year because it's still relevant. Over-reliance on the past.
Yeah, yes.
For a writer who stood by his convictions for so long that post-2005 Who could stand on its own and not be defined by what came before, RTD2 from the 60th until now has only been defined by what came before. It's not reinvented itself. It has made Doctor Who more impenetrable than ever for new fans.
Yeah. Totally. That was far better than what I wrote, which was too many glup shito moments.
It's the same principle.
Yeah.
I think that having the Disney catalogue... that's the problem. Having the Whoniverse catalogue on iPlayer is great. Why you wouldn't say, if you want to see more of the Rani's adventures, you can watch her stories on iPlayer now or whatever. Like, at least directing people towards it so that it feels like... even if you're not enough of a Doctor Who fan or you're not inclined to investigate more about this character, at least it does make it feel more connected.
Yes, yeah.
Because obviously when the Dalek came back in Dalek in 2005, it's such an iconic monster, but that's probably a bad example actually because everybody knows what a Dalek is. I don't know, say the Cybermen, right?
Yeah.
The Cybermen come back and, you know, maybe something is released around that time, Attack of the Cybermen on DVD, or didn't Genesis come out on DVD around the time of Army of Ghosts Doomsday or something?
They had a tendency to do that. Certainly, I think when Rise of the Cybermen came out, didn't The Invasion come out on DVD around that sort of time?
Okay. So, look, it's not like they've not done that before. And I think that having the catalogue on there is great, but not having the catalogue on Disney Plus, even the new series, is a incredibly baffling decision. And I can only imagine that would have come if they got commissioned for a third season. Yeah. I'm sure that would have been part of a renegotiation because it just seems insane that, you know, there's, as far as I'm aware, and I'm just talking about New Zealand, there's no way of watching Doctor Who, even from the year prior to the 60th anniversary, unless you pay for them sort of individually on iTunes or whatever. I don't think there's any streaming service that gives you access to all that stuff. But then you're calling back to stuff from the 80s and from the mid 70s.
I mean, this is the thing.
It's a weird one.
I mean, part of me does sort of sometimes wonder, like, I wonder if at the start of like the Disney negotiations, was there thought of like, oh yeah, this iPlayer business, it is going to, it's not just going to be iPlayer. Disney are going to get everything. And then maybe that's why Russell was like, oh, fine, I'm going to go all in with all these references to all this stuff because it's going to be so easy for people to watch. And then, as these things often do happen with like weird contractual things, something got shifted around and they're like, oh, actually, no, we can't do that now, or we don't want to do that. And then it was like, okay, well, that sort of cocked this up. Maybe that's just being a bit too conspiratorial. But it is mad that I feel like it's just insane. Even if you turned around to someone at the end of the episode and the continuity announcer says, go and watch Mark of the Rani, I feel like it's mad that you're asking your audience to go and do homework, because that's how kind of what it feels like, I mean, imagine going and watch Arc of Infinity and then you watch Reality War. You'd been like, how are these two things connected in any way? How is this the same person?
A screenshot going like, okay, guys, I've written down all of the appearances of Omega that I can actually access on iPlayer and on Spotify. Am I missing anything from this list? Then it was, 3 Doctors, Arc of Infinity, Omega. And I felt quite sorry for them because I was like, it's not going to be worth the investment, I don't think, because you're not going to recognize this character anyway. They're not going to be the Omega that you see in those stories. Yeah.
God, that is very sad, actually. Now that you said that, that is very sad that this poor person thought, oh, I'm going to go out of my way to learn the lore, and it was just so inconsequential to anything. That's really shit. That annoys. Yeah, that is bollocks. That is so bad. And I know some people will turn around and say, oh, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story isn't about Omega. It's about family. Fuck family. This little bastard baby didn't exist until last week. And really, she's still a fucking figment of everybody's imagination. She's on a bloody spaceship somewhere shitting her pants. So, come on.
If you want to see Captain Poppy's previous adventures in Doctor Who, go on BBC iPlayer now and watch
fucking bother.
Space Babies. What
Isn't
else
there
have you
a
got on
Target
your...
novel as that as well?
Yeah, there is a Target novel. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which makes sense, I guess, if the plan was for it to all be tied together, that they put that out as a Target novel.
If only Terrence Dicks hadn't died, do you think he'd have written a few new series Target novels?
No.
I'd have liked. I'd have liked him to, and I'd liked him to have seen the script.
I would have liked him to.
What the bloody hell is this all rubbish?
What's this all bollocks? Right, go on. Give us another.
Give us another one.
Point.
So we've had our glup shittos. Right, the only other one I've got is the sound mixing. The music is far too loud. What is going on?
Such an old man yells at clouds podcast.
But it's true. So many times, that whole sequence in Lux with the 3 fans, where they're saying how fucking wonderful he is, it is being drowned out by the sound. And obviously, like, the most weird choice of music from, like, a completely different era of Doctor Who. It's like, imagine if they started playing like Dudley Simpson's like spangly bingly bongs over the top.
Yeah. K9 on a mission.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, it's just it was certainly in the finale as well. There were moments where it was just like, I cannot hear the dialogue. I mean, to be honest, maybe it's for the best because half of what was being said was bollocks anyway. So who cares? But yeah, turn it down, man. Turn it down.
Dead Ringers were taking the piss out of this 20 years ago.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
So it's a Murray Gold problem, isn't it? Then in that case, because I don't remember anybody complaining about Sega Nakanola's mix, but maybe
not at all.
Maybe that's wrong. It's weird. For me, it was some of the sound effect mixing was really off.
Oh yeah.
I didn't mind the music so much. but that might. I mean, you've got a sound bar, haven't you, and a subwoofer? No. Oh, okay.
I have a woofer, but
you have got you've got a small woofer.
A small woofer, yeah.
Because we've got a sound bar and a subwoofer, and it does help just to separate. Because I think it's the mix rather than the mastering of it, you know.
Yeah.
And naturally, what they do when they edit the audio and they mix the sound is they'll have, you know, their big, you know, £250,000 fucking mixing setup with all the speakers, and then what they tend to do is have a single kind of mono cheapy Poundland speaker that they'll mix to as well, so that everybody across the range of options, if you've got 7.1 fucking Dolby Atmos or you've got a laptop speaker, everybody's sort of catered for.
Yeah, nobody can fucking hear it.
Exactly. But I think the problem is that Murray Gold's music it's quite, you know, it's an orchestra, so you want to hear every part of the orchestra, and you want to hear every sweeping movement and every, you know, bish bash bosh. And I think that means that you have to crank it in order to get your money's worth out of everybody in the BBC National Orchestra of Wales and Murray writing these tunes.
Yeah.
Dug-a-Doo has stood out as like the biggest song of the entire season. I don't think anybody else can really name a single track which was particularly good, apart from when he aped Sega Nakanola when Jodie turned up.
And that was cool.
Lovely little
I liked that.
Her.
Yeah, it was like twinkly twinkly sort of sci-fi. It was nice. Dug-a-Doo. Someone at work, she was like, "I've heard this song from Doctor Who. It's stuck in my head. I saw it on TikTok." I was like, wow, you know.
It is frustrating how much of an earworm it is, but well done, Murray. You've done it again.
Well done.
I can't wait for the EP vinyl release of Song for 10, My Angel Put the Devil in Me, the Goblin song, Dug-a-Doo.
Yeah.
I think they should make Dug-a-Doo the inner groove, like on Sgt. Pepper, where it slips off the final track and then it just repeats the Dug-a-Doo as it keeps bouncing off the inner groove of the record. That would be fucking great.
Send you mad. So that was my other complaint, was the sound mix. That was it.
My last one is going to be quite rambly because I haven't actually written it down, but I was talking to Sam over a couple of pints last night about this, and it's the showrunner model.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because I think that, you know, obviously you do need somebody steering the ship creatively, and it's been successful for Doctor Who for the most part for a really long time. But we had it with the Moffat era as well, where when somebody has kind of premiership over a program, even if you do have a script editor, a script editor in a modern TV sense doesn't mean a script editor in a Barry Letts, Terence Dicks, or a Robert Holmes, you know, Philip Hinchcliffe sort of sense, where they can bounce ideas off of each other and it's collaborative, and you actually feel like you're getting a fusion of ideas, which is only good for Doctor Who because it's an ideas-based program.
Yeah.
And I think that whether it's the script editor role that just needs to be implemented more strongly, or if the idea of having a showrunner for a series like that doesn't work anymore, I don't know. But it does seem to me that, and this is not just Russell, because I mentioned Stephen earlier as well, having a showrunner write with impunity and not being able to be seemingly told, I don't think that works. And I know that this series obviously got scuppered by not having Millie Gibson from the start, and obviously Ncuti deciding to leave once the series was shot. But there are still some decisions in there, like, for example, bringing back both the Rani and Omega. That I think anybody who had a strong enough hand in guiding a presence as big as Russell's would have been able to tell him, I think that's a really bad idea to overstuff it with all this stuff, including Susan, and having to wrap it up, and having Conrad, and having the Rani, and having Omega, and having Wishworld, and all these things, and having Captain Poppy. So I think that maybe the showrunner model has kind of had its day, and we need to have more of you can still have a hierarchy because obviously you still need somebody who's driving ideas. But
of course, yeah.
Again, I will always come back to this. Chris Chibnall had it right. A writer's room. Even the formatting of the series, that the seasons didn't end with a great big cataclysmic world-ending event until Flux, really. I know you had the death particle, obviously, at the end of the second series, but that was kind of Gallifrey centric, So I think, that for me is
the Sperm Destroyer.
That is what the Target book should have been called.
Should be called, yeah.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. I think that the showrunner model has sort of had its day now, and we should be looking at other things. Yeah,
I agree. Like you said, it needs someone there to steer the ship, but it does need maybe a partnership or like a writer's room is a much better way of doing it, because it just allows you to bounce those ideas, and it just sometimes you just need someone to tell you no.
Stop.
Yeah. You might be very talented, and obviously Russell T Davies is very talented, but I think sometimes, maybe you do get surrounded by yes men, or maybe you do hear, yes, that's brilliant too many times, and sometimes maybe you forget to actually go, oh, well, maybe this isn't that good. Obviously, it's very difficult for us to say. This series was clearly beset with issues, not just this series, but the last series. From the off, we were hearing stories about Millie Gibson going and all the rest of it. And obviously, although people poo-pooed it at the time and said, no, don't be ridiculous, it's just tabloid bollocks. Well, the proof is in the pudding, because we can just see it on screen that clearly something was going wrong behind the scenes, enough that she'd left, which then clearly ballsed up the second series, which meant Verada had to come in, and now obviously Shooty's gone. So I do feel sorry for Russell, because I know people have been on Twitter and stuff and been like, saying ridiculously awful stuff. It's got to a point I've never seen a showrunner being spoken about in that way before. And even in our most angry moments during the Moffat era, we weren't saying this guy's got dementia. You know what I mean? Or like people were saying, put a bullet in his head and all this kind of stuff. Is absolute madness. For God's sake, it's just a TV show. But so I do feel sorry for him. Because
tell us that about half an hour ago.
But I do feel sorry for the whole production, because obviously the wheels were coming off, and they were doing their damnedest to try and keep them on, and keep it out of the press, and try and make it seem like things were fine. And kudos to Shooty and Millie Gibson and Vera Seth for keeping that up, and
still being great ambassadors.
Exactly, and continuing to be so. So that, I do feel sorry for him. One thing I will point out, I sent this to you. This was the speculation around what series 1 and 2 should have been like. So Jonathan Roberts sent me this on Twitter, and they saw this as a post on Blue Sky, and I read it, and it was like a light bulb moment, because it was like, this makes so much sense. I'm not saying that necessarily it would have been good or any better than what we would have... Well, it probably would have been better than what we ended up with, but it makes a lot more sense. So the main point is that Desiderium was meant to be Ruby. The Rani was the one who left Ruby at the church, in the church on Ruby Road, much like the Missy set up Clara to meet the 11th Doctor, giving her the TARDIS phone in Bells of St. John. She's even wearing the same cloak we see in the flashbacks in The Legend of Ruby Sunday, which I think people on Twitter spotted that. There's like, oh, the Rani's got a very similar cloak to Ruby's mum, which makes a lot more sense. Why would a teenage mum have a fucking cloak like a Jedi or a medieval peasant? Well,
what year was Ruby born? Had the Phantom Menace just come out?
Probably, yeah. How old is she? 19. So
yeah. Oh, okay. Maybe
she was younger. Revenge of the Sith might come out.
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. So maybe her mum was just a huge Star Wars fan. The Rani then orchestrated the goblins kidnapping baby Ruby in the first place in the Church of Ruby Road to make the Doctor take interest in what he thinks is an otherwise ordinary person. They have their usual season 1 adventures, but when we get to the finale, things play out mostly the same, except that it's revealed near the end that even the fascist DNA database from the future has no idea who Ruby is. She is still a mystery.
Weirdly, that was muddy, wasn't it? That was kind of cut, but not.
Yeah. It was cut from the episode where it kind of needed to be mentioned in, and then it was sort of mentioned in the finale, and everyone was like, wait, what? Between seasons, Ruby decides to take a quick break on Earth and meets and dates Alan Budd, not Conrad. This could take place during the events of Joy to the World, and was the real reason why Moffat needed extra info to write that episode. Their relationship sours, and she breaks up with him for being too controlling shortly before the events of the Robot Revolution, which reunites Ruby and 15 after Ruby is kidnapped in place of Belinda. The time fracture around Miss Ruby Sunday voids the events of the episode, and Alan is deposited back on Earth, but with his memories intact, and when we reach Lucky Day, it is actually Alan trying to take down Ruby and Unit out of spite for being dumped, which, again, yeah, I could see that happening. In Wish World, it's Ruby and 15 who are married with Poppy as their child because 15 wished to be Poppy's parents back in Space Babies, which everyone was saying. You know, it, again, makes sense. The Rani has Ruby still as a baby in Desiderium, who is now in the custody of Alan. Again, the episode plays out much in the same. It was always going to be a huge rotting CGI baby as Omega. But during the denouement, either Ruby reawakens her wishing powers to fix the universe, or she battles her way into where Alan is holding Desiderium, touches Desiderium to then cause the same space-time event as the two certificates touching in Robots Revolution. So there'd be a Blinovich limitation effect, and it would just, everything would be reset. Standard reality ensues, and 15 takes Ruby, now clad in the same cloak as the Rani used, to drop herself off as a baby outside the church where she was found, which again, when we all saw the initial episode, what was the big thing? Oh, that looks like it could be Millie Gibson under that cloak. Love to know if it was her who shot those scenes. Wouldn't that be terrific? Wouldn't that be terrific? Ruby opts to adopt Poppy, who survived due to her parentage being a wish granted in Space Babies, and bids the Doctor farewell as he flies off in the TARDIS to find Susan. Other clues, the weird episode title, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, when it wasn't a legend. Whole seasons revolving around parenthood, when that was Ruby's shtick. All of the stories feeling like fairy tales or genre pieces. Ruby remembering alternate timelines. Ruby's hidden song. Yeah, what was that about? Ruby's song. That was all just went by the wayside. Belinda could have been the companion for season 3, potentially. So there we go.
Very interesting.
So, who knows?
All makes sense to me.
It does make sense. I thought worth putting out, and thank you to Jonathan for sending that across, because I read that and I was like, wow, that would have made a lot more sense. Very Moffat-y. Very Moffat-y,
especially the fairy tale elements.
Yeah. But that did feel weird. Like, it was sort of trying to do all this fairy tale stuff, but none of it really seemed to land. It was just very tacked on. Like the goblin stuff, you're like, okay, this is the direction we're going in, is it? And then it would sort of come in and out, and, you know,
but then the seventh son of the seventh son in a Bavarian wood is very fairy tale. So that obviously is the through line, you know. Yeah,
this is it. But then even in the finale, that just sort of feels like very flimsy and just sort of just there, tacked on at the start. Very strange. But who knows? I guess we'll have to wait for another 20 years for Doctor Who Unleashed to do some Zoom calls, and we'll find out whether or not the Welsh economy is still doing well. Thanks to Doctor Who.
A couple of comments on the social medias from folks who wanted to share their thoughts on the series before we get to what we think is going to happen to Doctor Who.
We've got another man who wants to share his thoughts as well.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll do this and then we'll call in the Hanky Wrangler, eh?
I'll call him in a moment. All right.
Beautiful. Matthew99 Cosplay. To me, this series just had to have a good finale, and I probably would have called it a success. Instead, with an ending that seems to have infuriated almost every fan and general audience member, what started off as a good series has descended into slop. Jace T. Walker, they fumbled the bag hard for real. Overall, I'm disappointed with this era. It had some huge wins, but always left me feeling like the potential was not fully explored. Maybe I was naive for expecting years and years writing, and instead we got wizards versus aliens. Which is pretty bang on. Ben Lindsay, for me, it was a suck mess. It started off by renewing my interest in Doctor Who, but ended up being so terrible I can't even enjoy other episodes. Very disappointing.
Burned my collection.
Yeah, let's have a look at some more positive spins on this. Asking people what their favourite episodes were. A. Bradley Stocks, best stories in my opinion. Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, Lux and the Well. Cold Weather Art, my favourite has to be Boom. You know you've got a good actor to play the Doctor if he can really pull off an entire episode literally standing in one spot. Greg Bellham, 73 Yards, stands head and shoulders above any other moment of the era. It largely shuns the Disney pastel pastiche we've become used to, and instead leans into the dark, mysterious, and creepy, which plays into Doctor Who's folk horror strengths. 4K Gremlin, I only really enjoyed 73 Yards and the Well. So most of the same episodes sort of being brought up.
Yeah.
But some individual moments, Boom, the episode itself, and Ncuti's performance, truly the first time he felt like he was the Doctor. Dot and Bubble, the climax, made all the more impressive given that was his first day on the job. Story in the Engine, a beautiful story about the life of a writer woven with the timeless child in a way that the previous era never really did. And The Reality War, probably one of Gatwa's finest performances in the show. And as such, I felt he, as an actor, went out on a high. You can't take away from Ncuti's performance in that episode, even
if not at all.
It materially itself. And I think you were talking about Ncuti and, wanting another series with him. I think I needed another series with him to actually feel like he was Doctor Who. I think the decision, although he's a clothes source and obviously you want to show him off in as many outfits as possible because he looks great in literally everything. I think the decision to not have a consistent costume for him also, as silly as that sounds, did scupper my relationship with him as the Doctor because he never really felt like a Doctor in that way.
And I think even for like branding and stuff, like
what do you put on the cover of blank?
Because you obviously Ncuti Gatwa, he's known for wearing very extravagant and bold outfits during press junkets and all sorts. So I think it became very difficult to know, well, what is a Doctor Who outfit and what is just something that he's wearing for this red carpet event or this interview.
Or, because there was a lot of traveling. There was a lot of traveling in time and, going back to the past and wearing era appropriate outfits, which I think makes perfect sense. But then you also look at David Tennant and, all they did was Brill cream his hair in The Idiot's Lantern and it looked fine.
And Jodie Whittaker just puts a waistcoat on, which I think is fun.
Jodie
I
Whittaker
think that
puts a waistcoat on and a scarf and a hat, and that's it. So I get having a special costume for the finale, like in the Series 1 finale where he wore the kind of combat gear. Because also it raises the stakes somewhat because you look at the promo images and think, oh, he's out of his costume. That something pretty bad's going to happen here. We didn't get him in the orange spacesuit, which is gutting.
Yeah. He's the first one, isn't he? He's the first one not to wear it.
He's the first one not to wear it. Yeah. When
in 20 years. He wore it in Series 7. He wears it briefly in a scene. God, how do I remember that? They didn't even do a toy of it. So, God, how do I know these things? How do you know these things? So that's where it all went wrong. Didn't put me in the orange suit.
No orange spacesuit. Right, let's get the Hanky Wrangler in and we'll find out what he has to say.
The Hanky Wrangler himself. He's coming along. He's been waiting in the wings to talk about.
As has everybody who's listening to this has been waiting.
Yeah,
for
if I messed myself.
He's messed
myself, and that is a success in many ways. Hello.
How's Mario Kart going?
How's what?
Mario Kart.
I'm not playing Mario Kart.
Oh, I thought you were playing Mario Kart.
No, I'm playing. What am I playing?
Mario Maker.
Mario Maker 2. It was my son's.
Oh.
I bought it for his birthday, and it looked pretty good. I haven't had a go yet, so Matt had a go last night and did well. So I thought it was my turn. So there's a few swears, but I've managed.
Yeah, we heard them.
You heard them, yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Right, enough of this gay banter. Johnny, what did you want to weigh in with on?
Well, I was telling that little anecdote this evening, and you said, "Oh, come on to the podcast and mention it to people." I was in the staff room this afternoon, and the librarian who been at the school for years, she is a big Doctor Who fan.
She's a Time Lord.
She's a Time Lord, yeah. And I hadn't seen her for quite a few weeks, so I said, "Oh, I said, have you watched any of the most recent series?" She said, "No, I haven't." She said, "I gave up after the previous series." She said, "I watched the Space Babies, and then she watched nothing then until Christmas." I said, "Unfortunately, you've watched the worst 2 possible episodes of Doctor Who in the 21st century." And she laughed, and that was marvellous. I said, "Oh." She said, "The Christmas one, that was enough." She said, I just couldn't face this series. I said, "Oh, what a shame." I said, "Because actually there were some very good episodes this series." I said, "Until you come to the end. And then it all went dog shit." I said, and it was absolutely appalling. She went, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I looked at a review in The Guardian," she said, and he was overly impressed. Although when we read the review, it didn't seem too bad, actually.
The one that I found didn't seem too bad.
But I thought how interesting that, somebody who's a big Doctor Who fan, I mean, obviously she loved the classic series, but she also loved Eccleston and David Tennant's era as well. She just said, "For me, I watched the start of Shooters and that Christmas one, and I just couldn't even bear it." What a shame.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
it is. Yeah, and I think it's bad when you're not only alienating the general audience, but also fans are now going, "Not for me."
Not for me. Yeah, and so many of your followers, I know when I watched your video, were saying, "That's it now. I've had enough. I've given it a go, but it's just gotten to the realms of incredulity now. I can't believe how mad things are, and I'm giving up." Which we should have said many years ago.
We've been warning you.
Why didn't we?
It's disappointing, but the thing is, we're going to come back to it when it eventually returns to our screens in whatever shape or form that takes, and we'll get on to talking about that in a minute. What do you think is the most likely outcome, Johnny, from here on out? Is it toast? Is it what's the next?
I load bus stations. Yeah. What's the outcome? Fuck me, who knows? Never to be what's the word I'm looking for?
Recommissioned
ever again.
I said to a girl at work today. She said about Doctor Who. I said, and everyone was sort of saying in this meeting, they're like, "It's been cancelled, though, hasn't it? It's been cancelled." And I said, "Well, we don't really know." I said, "It's all up in the air." And then I said, "But maybe having a little rest probably isn't the worst thing in the world." And she said, "Oh, but what about your podcast? What will you talk about?" I was like, "We got fucking hundreds of episodes we haven't reviewed yet.
We haven't even scratched the surface.
No, we'll be fine."
We haven't even done Earthshock yet.
Yeah.
Have you not?
No, we haven't done Earthshock.
No. It's on the list.
That's what to do. What to do while you're here for your birthday?
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Hey.
With the Cyberman here.
With the Cyberman
He's got the Cyber Boy
in the
here.
background.
Come on.
Has
Add
to
it to
done.
the list.
Put it on the list.
What do I think will happen? I mean, well, like you said before, the thing is, if it's a big money maker for the BBC, isn't it? So even though the viewing figures aren't as good as they have been previously, if it's still the second most watched bloody programme for some god no reason, then he's just giving himself a shower.
Threw up.
Then they're going to probably bring it back, aren't they? But I do think that they ought to give it a rest for a few years. I think obviously we want to know what happens next.
Do we?
Well, I say do we? Well, actually, story-wise, no, who gives a shit? We don't really care. But I mean, it would be interesting to see what they do regarding the production. What bid is going to be, but really, I mean, who cares?
I don't think that you can, like you just said, Johnny, like, obviously it makes the BBC a lot of money. But I was listening to the Alan Partridge. I'm
not saying that's a reason for why it should be made. I'm just saying,
no,
if it is, then...
Having said that, I'm fairly sure there's a line in either the last Alan Partridge book or one of the most recent podcast series that Steve Coogan did, where he jokes about the brittle bones of the BBC being propped up by EastEnders, and Doctor Who. And
Right.
it's like, actually, really, what else have they got? You know, every 2 years there's either a Euros or a World Cup, and people will collectively tune in for that.
Of course. Yeah.
Strictly,
That was as well,
Doctor
doesn't it?
Who, EastEnders.
Traitors.
That's
That's
really
like their biggest
Traitors.
hit, I
Oh, yeah.
guess.
Exactly.
Since-
Yeah, Traitors is a good example
Cash
of
in the
something
attic.
they've actually. Apart from yes, daytime viewership where it's more that people can't get up to turn the TV over rather than actually choosing to watch that particular channel.
And that's our mother you're talking about, so watch what you're saying.
There's very little else, that the BBC has, as a sort of standard bearer of the corporation. So it might be that they're just keeping it around, yes, because it's a nice money earner, but also, what else is there? Death in Paradise, Call the Midwife.
That is definite, wasn't that old shit? Yeah.
Exactly. So that might be another reason they're keeping it around, just to kind of justify its existence.
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
way. There's no other show like it. There's no other show that has big budget CGI, prosthetics and crazy things like that in it.
Well,
that the BBC
it might not
makes.
have in the future.
Well, yeah, it might just be a broom cupboard and one camera.
Yeah. We'd be giving our props to them.
Maybe, they'll be asking for them back.
Exactly.
Maybe we should have listened to David Maloney all those years ago on Doctor Who Night, saying that Doctor Who just needs to be cheap and cheerful. Maybe there is something in that. Maybe there is something.
It's about a dozen
There's a charm
times
in it,
we've
isn't
mentioned that
There is
quote.
a charm in it, and
For
I
sure.
think as a writer, there is an ingenuity in trying to overcome the
Yeah,
fact
all
that
those
we haven't got the
technicalities,
money
yeah.
to do this, that, and the other. I think it's very easy to say a big bloody bone creature stomps across London. Why?
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Well,
But that's
look,
the
Because we can.
because we can, yeah, I know.
I think
people
that's the
praising-
justification that's scuppering the show,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's
We
like,
can- we
we
do
have
it,
no
and-
barrier
Yeah.
to doing this
Yeah.
anymore.
I know people were praising like the whole action set piece with the unit fighting the bone creatures
Yeah.
in the last episode. And I was just take it or leave it, really.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything.
Yeah.
To
What did it really add to?
it didn't add anything to
No.
the story.
And
And
there was so much muddled nonsense
Yeah.
anyway going on, so...
fucking hell, unit tower was turning round.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't fucking turn into a transformer and twat one of the fucking things in the nose.
Think about like
Should've
if you
done.
watch a classic series documentary, you have an interview with a Barry Letts or somebody like that. How many times when they mention if we could have done it with the money, we would have done X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
often
true.
is that idea actually better than what they ended up doing on screen?
Yeah.
It's very rare because
Yeah,
often they'll
yeah.
mention, ideally we would have done this, and you go, oh, thank God they avoided that. They just about stuck the landing with the idea they settled on because that's all
Yeah.
they could afford. It's very rare that those grandiose plans either come off the way they want or actually sound better than what we got in the end.
Yeah.
And that might be because we're looking at it through rose-tinted glasses and we're going, oh, no, it's right just the way that it is. But,
Yeah.
the Leakley Bible, what
Okay.
they were going to do with the McGann series when that eventually came around, just because they could have done it doesn't mean they should have.
No.
Exactly.
And I think, it's a similar thing here with
Yeah.
the Disney budget allowing them to do whatever they want, that it loses a bit of that ingenuity and it loses a bit of that sparkle, doesn't it?
I mean, look at something like Midnight. That is one of the best episodes of that era. Certainly, as far as I'm concerned, probably Russell's best story. And that all came about because another story fell through, and they
Yeah.
were up against it, and they're like, "Shit, you got no money to make an episode. Hang on, I can knock something out that
Yeah.
only needs one set and few actors."
And it works, yeah.
Yeah, bloody hell, brilliant.
Blink, Russell,
Blink, exactly, yeah.
Stephen wasn't supposed to write that,
Yeah.
and had to
Yeah.
basically rush it together.
Yeah, this is it. So I think there is something in it. If maybe
Maybe if you hold a gun to their head,
Maybe that'll work.
that'll work.
Johnny's views do not necessarily reflect those of the Review of Death podcast or Pickaxe podcast.
So have you come
Beautiful.
to a consensus yet at this stage as to whether it was a mess or a success? Have you decided what you...
I liked somebody's comment that it was a suck mess. I like that.
yeah. See, this is
that-
it.
yeah.
I'm loath to say it was a complete mess. Like last year, I was happy to say that was
Because there were good
that was
episodes
dog
in
shit.
there.
But this year, I actually really enjoyed the ride.
Yeah.
I enjoyed getting up on a Saturday morning to watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, we did enjoy it. It was good.
And it was really nice. Whereas last year, I was like, oh, God.
Yes,
What
that's
have we
right.
got in store for us this
This week.
This week is
Yeah.
going to be bloody more of the same old caca.
Yeah.
But this time round, I was able to come out of episodes either going, well, that was good.
Yes.
Or, well,
It was fine.
It was all right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it didn't make me want to gouge my eyes out.
I think the only trouble is, I mean, I don't want to sort of, be too disheartening here, but to say, yes, I like that idea of it was a muckcess or whatever you said it was. Is that what you said it was? A muckcess?
Yeah.
A suck mess or whatever it was?
Suck mess. Yeah.
Well, okay. I like that idea. However, I think the only problem is, or the problem is for me, although I enjoyed a number of episodes and others I thought, that was fine. When you get to the end, that massive shit show at the end, not only that being a shit show, but with so many elements not being fulfilled in that finale,
Yeah.
I then thought...
it tarnishes the other episodes.
It tarnishes it. I think, what was all that about?
And it was the same as last year, wasn't it? We had the exact same problem with Ruby Sunday. Where it was like, where'd you get a name from?
Just that street over there.
It's just that freaking signpost over there. The fuck?
I know. It was so bad.
It's just insane. Yeah.
Right, well, let's talk a little bit about the
I'll let you
future. Let's
go.
be a bit more hopeful, eh?
Yes, I'll let you talk
So,
about the
Johnny, this
future.
is your point to leave in that case.
It is my point to leave, yeah. There's no
trying
future.
to be
No.
positive.
Right, goodbye all. Nice to see you all. Take
Nice
care.
to see you, Johnny.
See you
We'll see you soon.
when it comes back.
What's the
on
next
telly.
video we're doing?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh,
we have
it
plans.
might be when we're all together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that'd be good.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. See what we do then. Right, see you again.
See you
Ciao.
soon, mate.
Muckcess,
Beautiful.
whatever it was.
Suck mess.
Muckcess. Suck mess.
Suckfest. Right then.
if only. So let's talk about the future of Doctor Who. So at the moment, we don't really know what's going on, but you seem to think that you say it was a rumor earlier that we're going to get a Christmas special at the end of this year.
Well, that's what the Sun is saying.
Okay.
And the Mirror jumped on it as well, but it wasn't the same lady who's been like really good with all the leaks and stuff.
Okay.
It was some other person. So, take that with a pinch of salt. I guess theoretically, maybe they could film something in time for Christmas if it was very low budget, didn't have any CGI, maybe.
Yeah.
I
think
if it was
the
like a more
most likely
intimate affair.
outcome. I think either we get a special at the end of this year, or we get a full series next year.
Ooh, do you think full series? Do you reckon? Do you reckon they could pull it off?
5 episodes, 6 episodes.
Yeah, well,
or
okay,
something.
yeah.
Because I don't think that they'll want to leave it that long.
That's true, actually.
To release a single special Christmas next year.
Yeah.
And I think that if the rumours are true, and I hope that this is the case anyway, that they are actively searching for a new streaming partner, I think they'll want to announce something and get it into production as soon as possible. And that might mean shooting through Christmas this year in order to, if they started production in October, November, it's not outside the realms of possibility that they would be able to get something together to start shooting before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, maybe it could be like the 60th. Maybe it could be like 3 specials, because the 60th was supposed to be one in the spring, one in the summer, and one in one in November. But then Disney mucked all that up, and I think Disney were like, no, we want them all consecutively.
Yeah.
So that changed the scheduling. That's what I've been told. So maybe they could do something like that, like you said, because they could film it through Christmas. That would give them ample time to get, if they were to start in like the next month or two, that could get them through to spring easily. And then they could be working on the next one whilst that one's sort of going through. They could be filming the next one whilst that one's going through post, and they'd be able to do it. So maybe they could do something like that, but who knows? It's so hard. It's, weird that we've not really ever been in this situation. I guess we were kind of thinking along these lines during the Chibnall era a little bit.
But they had managed to swoop in at the last minute. And also, but it is very similar to the Chibnall era in that clearly the plan was to have obviously a wrapped up finale.
Yeah.
With the stuff that was shot that never got used.
Yeah.
But once Ncuti was leaving, given how late in the day after the Ncuti regeneration stuff was shot that Billy came on board, in theory, it could have been the ending that was planned for Power of the Doctor, where we don't see who the new Doctor is, and that could have been the end of the show. So it's just as well that they did find somebody to come in and do this, even if my choice would have been a while. If you're going to do it as like we just need to spin the wheels a little bit before we get the next full series funded, and we'll do a special out of the BBC's pocket with a stunt cast Doctor, I would have preferred it to be an actual stunt cast Doctor, not somebody from the past of the show.
Yeah.
If you've got Hugh Grant, if you've got Helen Mirren or something.
I was just about to say that. I was watching. We watched The Heretic the other night, and that's a really good film. And he's brilliant in it. And I thought that, I was like, I think that would have been, if they could have got like a big name to do Doctor Who, and like you said, even if it was just for one episode, if they wanted to go down that route. And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? I wonder if the worry is, if we end it on a open-ended regeneration, are we telling the audience, well, that's it?
Well, you're also tempting
matter.
the BBC to say, okay, well, you've basically wrapped it up for us then.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got, both sides are like, well, what's the point in coming back? But I guess if they think, well, if we show a face that might tantalize and titilize the audience, like Billy Piper or a big name, then maybe, well, some people, other than the sad loonies who come back and watch it anyway to moan about it, maybe we can get an extra year out of this before we can, and buy us the time that we need to get the ball rolling properly. But yeah, it's very interesting times.
The two last questions I had were, firstly, it's a bit of a boring one. Which streamer do you think is most likely to pick up Doctor Who? Because I assume the BBC are going to go down that same route again, because there's a reason they did that for this most recent series. They couldn't afford to fund it on their own, and they were going to find a partner. Obviously, Amazon immediately springs to mind, because we've heard that they have basically been waiting in the wings for Disney to drop it so they can swoop in and take it over. I don't know how likely that is now that they've spent $1 billion on wrestling the Bond rights off of Eon. But that's not to say that Jeff Bezos hasn't made that money back within seconds of that decision being made.
I was going to say, and the BBC, they just turn around and say, look, mate, as long as you can keep the lights on in the studio, we'll be happy.
Exactly. So I think Amazon is likely, but I don't think that is the be all and end all. Right. I was thinking Hulu, and then realised that Disney owns Hulu, so it's not
Pornhub.
Pornhub. I think Netflix is probably one of the most sensible options.
Yeah.
They've made big inroads into collecting archive. If you look at what they've done with WWE, although a lot of it hasn't appeared, they've made a huge investment in having Monday Night Raw on Netflix and then uploading old pay-per-views. They're still going through the archive, and there's a number of episodes missing, probably because having the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix and then including the episodes of Raw where he's sexually assaulting people probably isn't the best look for Disney Plus.
Yes.
For Netflix.
For Netflix, yeah.
But I think there's existing relationships between the BBC and Netflix. I mean, Netflix hosted Doctor Who for a very long time. They had the back catalogue on there before. Yeah. And I think that
Netflix, they have previous of like reinvigorating old IPs for a new audience. Like they did it with He-Man, they did it with Castlevania, they've done it with Devil May Cry, House of Cards, and all these like powerhouse animation shows. They're all old things, old shit that people used to like. And they give it another go. So yeah, I think that potentially, Netflix could be a good choice. But yeah, who knows really? I think it's either going to be between Netflix and Amazon.
Okay.
I think maybe I'm kind of sort of I'm siding with Amazon just because of the things that we've heard people say and the James Bond thing, really. And I just think, well, maybe they want to go all in and get like the other big British IP.
And they've done the Rings of Power, and I know that I can only attest, from what other people have said to me about it, that it's kind of not really worth anyone's time.
Yeah.
But only Lord of the Rings fans are going to watch it, but then we're also in a similar situation with Doctor Who fans.
That's true.
But they did give that a great rollout, and they did promote that very, very heavily. So we know that they can promo stuff. And also, somebody was saying, I think it was Calvin Dyson was talking about this when Bond got picked up by Amazon, that you have an opportunity now. They've got distribution in every country to stick a little flyer in every box that goes out to someone's home, whether they're buying a new Mac or they're buying lube for a cow's anus, that watch Doctor Who this Saturday, and it's what an amazing publicity.
I've just got this image of a man with his arm up a cow's arse, and then I need something to wipe the shit off my hand. Oh, hang on.
Doctor Who's back. Take that.
Doctor Who's back.
The only other question I had for you was, post Billy, where do you think we're going to go with maybe the choice of Doctor more so than the actual format or release schedule of the program?
God knows. I think whoever was Russell T Davies' first choice is thinking, or the initial first choice for last year, is thanking their lucky stars that they didn't get a job. I don't know. I really don't know what they'll do with it next. I mean, the sky's the limit, really. And I think that's what it would have excited me more to have just seen some new face and gone, oh, cool, this person's Doctor Who. Rather than, obviously, the stunt route. I think it needed to be either someone that we just didn't know who it was and be like, oh, right, okay, this person's Doctor Who? Or it needed to be a big name, and it was like, oh, this person's Doctor Who. What?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
then you would have got
like
the general audience to kind of pick their ears up. Yeah.
Yeah, but instead we were just like, oh. I mean, I know some people are excited to see her back. I mean, no disrespect to Billie Piper, she's a fantastic actress, and I think had she have not been Rose, and had we not been mired with all the mucky nostalgia stuff that's going on with this series, maybe we would have reacted differently. But unfortunately, all that it's just created a bad taste in people's mouths.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry for Billie Piper, really, that she's sort of been thrown into a bit of a ugh with it. I don't know.
Considering that is also kind of the attitude that she gives out about Doctor Who as well.
Yeah.
As soon as she got cast, all I could think of was that snippet of her Zoom camera that got caught when she was asked a question about Doctor Who by a fan on Zoom, and she's just like, brilliant. Okay, then that I think draws a line under that, and now regular Rod service can resume. We haven't got anything to do with the new series now until we either hear news about it or the war between the land and the sea comes out.
Oh God, yeah, that's coming out, isn't it?
Yes. So whether that's the end of this year or the beginning of next year, God knows.
I reckon. I mean,
I suppose now it's dependent on what they're going to do with the main show, isn't it? Because they don't want to clog the schedule up.
No, that's it. And maybe if the Disney thing has all come to an end, maybe contractually they just have to get it out now. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think War Between's going to be on Disney?
Oh, I think so. I think that was part of it, isn't it? I think part of the thing. I don't know. The whole thing is just weird and a mess. And I mean, bloody hell. Back when Series 1 was about to go out or was going out, I remember hearing stories saying that the BBC didn't want Disney involved. That the whole thing was a whole mess. So, who knows? I don't think it's a story that we'll ever really get to the bottom of.
No.
In, in the next few years. I think this is something that maybe much further down the line, it'll all come out what went wrong there. But we just, it's interesting to see where it's all going to go. In terms of our normal rodding, what's happening next? Unless we get told Doctor Who's coming back or being cancelled.
Yeah, exactly. So unless we hear news about the show, in which case, of course, we'll try and do a sort of emergency episode, or we'll, depending on how big the scale of the news is, we'll tack it onto the news section at the start of its respective episode. We are going to, in the next main episode, discuss, because we've had such a disappointing succession of finales, and we're going for a bit of a finale theme over the next month or so. Yeah. We're going to discuss what I think, and I'm sure people are going to tell me in the comments that I'm completely wrong, is the original Doctor Who finale, the sort of first Doctor Who season finale. Again, beset with production problems. We're going to talk about The Invasion of Time, which is a review I have wanted to do since we started. And I'm very, very much looking forward to going back and watching that story, because it's one I've always had a very, very strong affection for, even if other people can't fucking stand it, which seems to be the general consensus. Well,
funny you should say that, because my nephews watched it over the weekend. And they bloody loved it. They haven't finished it yet. They've watched the first 5 episodes and they loved it.
Well, they've got great taste.
They've got great taste, yeah. Their favourite episode's Tans or Weng Chiang, so I don't know what that says about them.
Great taste, but racists.
Yeah, exactly.
Gutted. So we've got that coming in our next main episode. Next week, we're going to be putting together a tier list of Doctor Who regenerations. That's going to be on the Patreon, so that's been updated, of course, to feature Ncuti Gatwa's departure. We've got commentaries aplenty coming up between July and August over on Patreon. But the most important thing to mention here is that in a couple of episodes' time, we're actually going to be together in person for the first time since March 2023.
My God!
Which is incredibly exciting. Yeah. So I'm flying over to the UK at the start of July, and we're going to try and record a boatload of material to satisfy all of your rodding needs over the next couple of weeks. We're going to obviously pre-record a lot of stuff so that you guys don't have a big gap between material that we're putting out. So if you want to make sure that your rodding needs are being met, then go over to the Patreon and join up. We've had so many people join since we were doing our live streams.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is fantastic. And it's a pleasure to have you all over there joining us for some good rodding times. So commentaries, tier lists. We're going to do a live stream while we're together in the UK as well. And some stuff with Johnny in person as well for both the Patreon and for the main show. So lots to look forward to. It does feel a bit weird sort of going back into our regularly scheduled routine of
it does, doesn't it?
Watching old episodes, and because this has been our life basically for the last 2 months, has been talking about modern Doctor Who and doing the live streams, which we'll probably do more of, incidentally. We'll probably keep the live stream thing going, so it's not just pre-recorded episodes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, they were really good fun, and it was nice to be able to interact with people and talk to them, live. So we thoroughly enjoyed that. It does feel weird. It does feel very strange, and it's going to be odd. I mean, as much as we keep saying take it off the air, what are we going to do with ourselves other than review all the old stuff?
Well, just that, I suppose. Just two lads rodding in the backwaters of time. So plenty to look forward to and plenty to come. And we look forward to going through all of that stuff. We've got plans for the whole of the rest of the year, from, doing this little series finale mini arc through to celebrating 60 years of Terror of the Zygons, or was it 50 years of Terror of the Zygons?
50.
Yeah, we've got the DVD releases to catch up on, so we need to talk about The Savages, we need to do Inferno. We've got loads of stuff over on the Patreon. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll be talking about Red Dwarf over there. A very bizarre Christmas commentary, which we've spoken about very briefly. We've got a lot to look forward to for the rest of the year, and we look forward to bringing it all to you.
there is good shit on the way.
And then the war between the land and the sea.
And then obviously that as well. I guess that'll be, if they release that weekly, I guess that'll be...
That could be a live stream thing that we do.
Yeah. Just us going, week on week. Ugh.
Yeah.
Fish
gill
fingers.
On gill action.
Gill on gill action, yeah. Stick that in my gills. Thank you very much, Mr. Anyway, yeah, so Billy's going to be coming over here. We're going to keep him hostage for a few weeks. He thinks he's going off to see friends and family, but actually he's just going to be trapped in this house, and we're just going to force Doctor Who rods out of him.
Better than into me.
Better than into you, yeah, that's true. That is true. So thank you all for watching, everybody, and thank you for being Patreons and all the rest of it. Thank you for supporting us over those last mad 8 weeks. It's been a blast. See you in all of our upcoming things, and we'll keep you updated on what happens with Doctor Who as and when it happens. Farewell for now.
See you later.
Bye-bye.